uh, if, if they have a choice, they're happy that there's an option like the Charter School in Martha's Vineyard. And, you know, it's not for everyone, may not be for everyone, but for those families that have been served by the Charter School, I think they've left, they've been benefited by it. And I'm happy that I'm just part of that process.
Right, and benefited not just the student, but the entire family.
Absolutely.
And that's made an impact in our community. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being here today and talking about yourself and the charter school and giving people who've never been some insights into what it is that you're doing.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey for me and my family. Many of you don't know this, but my brother Billy was here, and I went to second grade and third grade in Tisbury in 62 and 63. My brother Tommy graduated from the Regional High School in 63. I came back in 1980 with my wife Sherry to visit for an overnight in Chappaquiddick. And then I came back in 1998 because I was hired to run this school. There are two things that I brought to this community. One is my love of the island, and two is my love of this school. And those are the two things that have persevered from the day I walked back here in 98 to today. My love of this island and my love of this school. And those two things will never change. Thank you very much. We have to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Don't get me wrong here. It took a community of people to get us where we are today. It took a wonderful group of students, a talented, creative group of teachers, the supportive administration, board of trustees, and office of education personnel to make it work. To a person, I've received the support for 20 years that I asked for and that I needed for us to get to where we are today. I mean, something very simple and something very stupid. But Jonah came to me 25 years ago and said, I want to take the kids to Italy. I go, Italy? Jesus, let's get to Tisbury. Forget Italy. He changed my mind. Making those kids every year to change the lives of many of our kids. And that reminds me, and I think Pete or Sheila spoke to it. Our teachers changed the lives of every kid every day they came to school. Believe me when these people tell you we have a talented group of teachers in this building. And believe me when Pete says our kids' lives are changed every day.
Success. There's no question about it. But we still have, we need to keep challenging ourselves. We need to keep working at our profession to the best of our ability. it's moving in a green direction. I have had an extraordinary experience at Mount Vineyard. I'm just a happy person when I go to school every day. I enjoy bike riding. I enjoy rollerblading. For me, the last 10 years it's been a perfect match for me in what I need to do professionally as well as personally. So I hope good times continue at the Charter School. I just love talking about the school, and I like taking people on tours of the school when school's in session, so they can see the breadth and the real life of what's going on there. They can see the happy faces. They can see the interaction between the adult and the young person. They can see the hands-on projects that the students are participating in the classroom. They can see that if they have a choice, they're happy that there's an option like the Charter School in Martha's Vineyard. And you know, it's not for everyone. It may not be for everyone, but for those families that have been served by the Charter School, I think they've been benefited by it, and I'm happy that I'm just part of that process.
Right, and benefited not just the student, but the entire family.
Absolutely.
And that's made an impact in our community. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being here today and talking about yourself and the Charter School and giving people who've never been some insights into what it is that you're doing.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey for me and my family. Many of you don't know this, but my brother Billy, who's here, and I went to second grade and third grade in Tisbury in '62 and '63. My brother Tommy graduated from the Regional High School in '63. I came back in 1980 with my wife Sherry to visit for an overnight in Chappaquiddick. And then I came back in 1998 because I was hired to run this school. There are two things that I brought to this community. One is my love of the island, and two is my love of the school. And those are the two things that have persevered from the day I walked back here in '98 to today. My love of this island and my love of this school. And those two things will never change. Thank you very much.
We have to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Don't get me wrong here. It took a community of people to get us where we are today. It took a wonderful group of students, a talented, creative group of teachers, the supportive administration, board of trustees, and office of education personnel to make it work. To a person, I've received the support for 20 years that I asked for and that I needed for us to get to where we are today. I mean, something very simple and something very stupid. But Jonah came to me 25 years ago and said, I want to take the kids to Italy. I go, Italy? Jesus, let's get to Tisbury. Forget Italy. You changed my mind. And taking those kids to Italy every year has changed the lives of many of our kids. And that reminds me, and I think Pete or Sheila spoke to it. Our teachers changed the lives of every kid every day they came to school. Believe me when these people tell you we have a talented group of teachers in this building. And believe me when Pete says our kids' lives are changed every day. But it's true. And last, I want to mention that Sheila was a student here for 10 or 12 years, for 8 or 10 years when I was here. And she mentioned a little bit about the pillars of the school. There's one pillar of the school that I brought to school every day, and that was trust. I trusted every person that walked into this building every day to do the best they could do every day. And that's what happened. Our students and our teachers came to work every day and did the best they could do through the trust that they had in them. When you trust people, they will perform at levels that you could not imagine. So believe me, continue trusting in the people that come in this building every day. And last but not least, my last meeting with Pete before I walked out and he walked in, he said to me, "Bob, I'm really nervous." I said, "What are you nervous about?" He goes, "You were here for 20 years, who am I?" I looked at Pete and I looked him in the eye and I said, "You just be yourself and you'll be fine." And Pete is taking us on the continued journey of a successful charter school on Martha's Vineyard. And on behalf of all of us, Pete, we wanted to thank you for the work you've been doing for us. Thank you very much.
If we see some signs of struggle, we want to see if we can create a supportive intervention process so students don't have to go on medication if they don't need to, if we can intervene with teaching strategies that address the learning styles of that particular student early on. So from an educational perspective, that's what, we're going to try to do that. I just, from a professional perspective, from my I have had an extraordinary experience here in Martha's Vineyard. I'm just a happy person when I go to school every day. I just love talking about the school. And I like taking people on tours of the school when school's in session, so they can see the breadth and the real life of what's going on there. They can see the happy faces. They can see the interaction between the adult and the young person. They've been benefited by it, and I'm happy that I'm just part of that process.
Many of you don't know this, but my brother Billy, who's here, and I went to second grade and third grade in Tisbury in 62 and 63. And then I ate because I was hired to run this school. There are two things that I brought to this community. One is my love of the island, and two is my love of this school. And those are the two things that have persevered from the day I walked back here in '98 to today. My love of this island and my love of this school. And those two things will never change. Thank you very much.
I want to mention that Sheila was a student here, and she mentioned a little bit about the pillars of the school. There's one pillar of the school that I brought to school every day, and that was trust. I trusted every person that walked into this building every day to do the best they could do, and that's what happened. Our students and our teachers came to work every day and did the best they could do through the trust that they had in them. When you trust people, they will perform at levels that you could not imagine. So believe me, continue trusting in the people that come in this building every day.
Things have changed here. It looks good.
Yeah, we do morning meeting on chairs.
Yeah.
We're so old. Couldn't get up the floor anymore, so we said we need chairs. Yeah, right. I know, somebody said, oh, she said, I said, no, 20 years ago, I was supposed to get on the floor. Yeah. So this is okay, that's wrong. Guys, it's okay. Oh, yeah. Glamour girl. Hello. Finally, I don't know what happens at 6. I'm waiting. I heard you. Animal lover. Same kind of Lola has to build it, that's the thing. So. Where? I work at Hotel Jackson's. Been there for like 5 years. I'm so glad. Oh, yeah. Hi, you could scoop me this side, but I want to hug too. I miss you. You're at local.
Yes.
I mean, when I was
That's fine. Is everyone please take a seat?
Okay, I'm just gonna find a seat where I can sort of support.
Oh.
Everyone please take a seat. Program in the typical charter school fashion, DC.
Welcome to the Martha's Vineyard Public Charter School. Welcome to the Martha's Vineyard Public Charter School. We are here today to celebrate the remarkable life of Bob Moore. It is fitting that we gather here on Main Street at the school that Bob loved with all of his heart. A school that grew and prospered thanks to his unshakable vision. His vision of what was truly possible in the world of education. It is impossible to think of how many hundreds of island lives were positively impacted because of his belief and commitment to the charter school. His commitment to the students, his commitment to their families, his commitment to the school's island partners, his commitment to the staff. talk to anyone who worked for Bob, and you'll know he loved his staff and he worked tirelessly on their behalf. Bob Moore was the embodiment of the pillars of the charter school: responsibility, democracy, freedom, cooperation, respect, and trust. Thank you for being here today at the charter school on Main Street to celebrate the truly extraordinary life of Bob Moore. Welcome.
Our dear friend Lynn Ditchfield. Read a treasured piece from a former student, Heather Boyd, who could not be here. So Lynn is going to do the honors of speaking for Heather. It's an essay written by her.
Just have to say that I love debating, discussing education with Bob. And we didn't always agree, but one thing we did agree about is an unswerving support and respect for colleagues, for educators, and an undying love for students. So, as Beth said, I have the honor of reading something that was written by a former student, Heather Boyd, who was also here early on when Bob started. And thank you for letting me do that. Bob Moore was a remarkable individual whose kindness, dedication, unwavering belief in the potential of young people and the people he helped outside of school has left lasting impact. The legacy he created continues to inspire those whose lives he touched. Growing up, I faced significant personal challenges. When I started ninth grade at the regional high school, I struggled to apply myself and rarely attended. By the end of the year, I transitioned to the charter school. There is where I met Bob. Meeting Bob didn't mean that my struggles magically disappeared. My frequent absences caught the eyes of the teachers, and most importantly of Bob. He called me into the office for a conversation that would change my trajectory in life. He didn't lecture or demand, he worked with me. Bob took the time to understand my challenges and came up with a flexible schedule that allowed me to attend school until noon. Knowing I could go home early made all the difference. I started to show up. 80% is showing up, he once told me. That quote became my motto for the rest of the school year. Thanks to his belief in me, I made it through 10th grade. Yet life's challenges didn't end there, and I eventually dropped out in 11th grade. But even then, Bob didn't give up on me. He reached out to ASMV, connected me to the GED classes, and encouraged me to keep going. 4 years after I enrolled, I earned my GED. Shortly after, I moved off island, earned my CNA certification, and found my calling work working for hospice, a job I love and that fulfills me every day. Not long ago, I visited the island and I found myself in the hospital where I saw Bob again. The joy in that moment was massive. This man who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself greeted me with a smile and told me he was proud. That was all the validation I needed. Bob Moore's faith in others, his compassion, and his dedication to helping people was unparalleled. He changed my life and the lives of countless others who needed someone in their corner. Bob, thank you. The lessons you taught me to show up, to care, to believe in others will guide me throughout my life and my career in healthcare all throughout my life. Your legacy lives on and I will carry it forward.
Sorry. Doing so well. Very sorry, Jerry.
Okay.
These are seated this kind of time. This is Bob.
Hi, my name is Jerry McDowell, longtime friend of Bob Moore and his brother Billy.
Yes.
One of my first insights into Bob's character involved his determination and focus. Bob and Billy were both very good soccer players. They were both in the midfield, played in the middle of the action. So I had a great view as I was a goalie, so I got to watch them a lot and saw how good they were and how they played. During the team conditioning drills was when I got to know Bob the most. I always believed I was a faster runner than Bob. But anytime we were doing our sprints or conditioning, running around the track or sprints, I looked and Bob was right nearby. He was always right nearby. Sometimes, he was ahead. And, he showed me that, even though I might be ahead at some point, that does not mean I'm going to win. Because he was going to push and make me work even harder. I know that aspect of his character, his determination, his focus also transferred to the other sports that he played when he played hockey and basketball. It was part of his nature. So now, maybe I wasn't as fast as I thought, and maybe more likely Bob was faster than I gave him credit for. But the point was his leadership, his determination, it was always there, and it made other people better. As a coach, I learned, you really can't ask more of an athlete than that. It's fitting that Bob concluded his professional career here at the charter school. I believe his success throughout his career and his experiences set him up for an opportunity to be in a position to direct the Martha's Vineyard Public Charter School from where it was 20 years ago to now. All you need to do is look around, right, and see the environment of caring, of creating experiences for people and opportunities, believing in people, and believing in staff. Along the way, Bob talked to me many times about the challenges of finding new teachers for the school and getting them to the island, but how much he believed in people when he hired them, and his ability to establish and maintain, develop and maintain those relationships was what set him apart. His ability to connect with students, to build teams, naturally his experience with Little League baseball and coaching and sports, he had an experience regarding building teams. So I believe that his purpose to conclude his career was created by all of the things that he did from the time that he worked at University of Massachusetts and worked at the Belchertown State Hospital with people with behavioral health issues. He traveled abroad and worked with people in different cultures. He worked at the Little Red Schoolhouse in New York and developed his administrative skills. All along, fundamental to that was his ability to create and maintain solid relationships in order to get the best out of people. I believe that the Martha's Vineyard Public Charter School was the pinnacle of Bob's professional career. But I see the Martha's Vineyard Charter School as the crown jewel of his professional accomplishments. Bob was a great ping pong player. He's the only person I ever played with who had his hand in his pocket and just stood in one spot and always seemed to be in a position to hit the ball back. He was a human backboard. Anything that you hit, you could hit it short or long. He was there to hit the ball back. And when you finally hit the ball long off the table, when you got tired of hitting it back, you might see this little grin. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep on hitting back. And that's what he did, always with his hand in his pocket. Bob shared a lot with me during his battle with cancer. His approach was determined and focused, just like you would expect. He would talk to me about how he felt. He would tell me what his doctors saw. I always believed in his team of doctors. I always believed in his support system on the vineyard. But he would tell me, this is what the doctors think. This is what this is what they see and what the plan is. Jerry, this is what I need to do. Not once during his entire battle did he complain. There was no thought of ever giving up. He continued to hit back at everything cancer threw him. Ultimately, on November 15th, Bob's life on earth ended. He was beaten by it, but he was never defeated. I learned a lot from Bob, and there's so much to be celebrated. Once he returned from one of his international adventures, and we had gotten together. And I said, okay, our evening ended, or whatever it was, and I said, see you later, Bob. And he said, ciao. That's new, I hadn't heard that. Kind of cool, ciao, ciao. And it happened again the next time I saw him. So recently I learned that ciao not only does it mean see you later or goodbye, it also means hello. So I learned so many things from Bob even before he was gone. So Bob, on this day of celebration of your life, I celebrate all of the accomplishments and the impact and the influence that you've had on so many people throughout your life. I celebrate and I value your friendship. I'm a better person because of it. Thank you, Bob. Ciao.
Not for real. You're gonna see a theme throughout this event. Bob loved baseball. And there is no better person to start that off than his actual college baseball coach, who could not be here tonight except today, but sent a piece to be read And he was coaching UMass Amherst, right, baseball, college baseball coach. So Jonathan Hanover is going to do the honors of reading that. And the coach's name is Jeff McKay.
Okay, so yeah, this is from Jeff McKay, his college baseball coach. I had the honor, and I mean honor, of being Bob's primary baseball coach at UMass Amherst in the early 70s. That's 50 plus years, which counts for something. Any teacher worth his salt knows that when a student comes down the pike who is your teacher, you should be so lucky. It's also true for coaches. When a player comes down the pike who is your coach, you should be so lucky. When Bob was about to graduate from UMass in history, I believe, not baseball, although it could have been baseball history. I told him that I was encouraged to know that someone like him was going into teaching. It was easy to see that Bob was going to become an educator. And for me, as a lifelong teacher, coach, educator is high praise. It does not mean to drive information or drills into students' or players' skulls. It means to draw the learning out of them, and that's Bob. Many decades later, when I learned that Bob retired from teaching and I was working at the jail as an educator, I thought, I know a lot about one-on-one sit-down coaching. I'll give Bob some help. And then I realized who I was talking about. I was going to give Bob some advice on how to coach. Fortunately, I got off it quickly before embarrassing myself. Here's what the great American poet Walt Whitman had to say about the matter. I am a teacher of athletes. He who by me cuts a wider breast than my own provides the width of my own. He most honors my style who learns under it to destroy the teacher. The boy I love becomes a man, not through derived power, but in his own right. More than a century later, Bob proved Walt right over and over again. Bob and I remained good friends cross-country for more than half a century. I'm writing a book about coaching. Part of the inspiration comes from Bob. Part of the dedication goes to Bob. He is alive and well in my book and in my life. Jeff McKay.
Laura Johnson, a friend of both Bob and Shari for many, many years.
And Sherry's friend, which is something I take very seriously. I think it is fitting, since we are in a school, to know the origin of the word friend, which has Germanic roots and means to love, to honor, and to set free from confinement. So what then can be said of love rooted in friendship? If I borrow from Baldwin, it is that love is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. And what a light Bob was, if I look at the friendship that's in this room. Light being that electromagnetic energy, that enables vision, which makes room for possibility that friendship is a vehicle for anticipating what is possible. And to the degree that most, if not all, who are present in this room considered Bob a friend, then it is safe to say Bob's legacy is a room filled with love and endless possibilities. I want to tell a short story about two short stories. Number one, Bob is not only friend to me, but he's Uncle Bob to my baby boys. A baby boy who has so much discernment that he doesn't really let people visit him at our house. But somehow, the moment he met Bob, it was like two peas in a pod. Bob let him jump off the Jaws Bridge, which I was a little nervous about, but he trusted him almost immediately. And that was something, my son just doesn't have it. So that that light that we talk about in terms of friendship and love was ever present in him. Second thing I want to share with you. I brought my mom and her two sisters to Martha's Vineyard a few years ago. Bob and Sherry showed up, and Bob had these plate-sized apple fritters. My mom and her sisters still to this day talk about those plate-sized apple fritters. And it was just, they were amazed that someone who had never met them would go out of their way to greet them this way. And every time I say, I'm talking to Sherry, my mom says, how is Bob? The last thing I'll say is the inspiration that Bob provided to everyone goes way beyond the borders of Martha's Vineyard and directly to Dallas, Texas, where my mom, who's dealing with her own health struggles, every time I would tell her, man, Mom, Bob's back in her. She's like, if he can do it, I can do it too. So legacies are made and established not only in the things that you accomplish, but in the lives that you touch. And I would say that his legacy is more lasting and ever present and strong.
Thank you.
Emily is a former teacher here in this building, actually one of my son's first teachers. But Emily's new.
Good morning. I had the pleasure and honor of working as a teacher here at the charter school under Bob's direction for 13 years. Bob hired me for my first ever teaching job, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was young, I was inexperienced, but in typical Bob fashion, he believed in me far more than I believed in myself. That was Bob's gift. He believed in people. He was able to see past the details of a resume or the uncomfortable interview. He looked beyond the blue hair or strange clothes of a teenager. He was able to see beyond the surface into the heart. Whether you were 12 or 28, a student, a teacher, or incarcerated, Bob saw past all that because that's what Bob did. He believed in people's potential before they were sure they had it. I don't think I could still be living on Martha's Vineyard if it weren't for Bob. He created a space for me to grow into the kind of teacher and person I wanted to be. And when I look around this room, I know I'm not the only one. Many of us built lives here in part because of Bob. He gave us the roots we needed to build beautiful, meaningful lives. Bob cared about this school. He believed in the work that was done here, and he believed in the messy, difficult, and joyful work that is education. But it went beyond curriculum and state standards. To Bob, education was about relationships and connection, and he fostered a community where that was possible. Out of professional necessity, Bob had long ago mastered the art of wrapping up a conversation in 5 seconds flat. But he also never failed to greet you in the hallway or on the playground with an enthusiastic, "How you doing?" He was the first person in the building, and during the school day could often be found in the hallways, dropping into classrooms, reading at the kindergarten, participating in daily morning meeting and the Friday song. And if maybe he didn't always sing the Friday song, unless it was Take Me Out to the Ball Game or Happy Birthday on the last day of school, he was always there listening enthusiastically and maybe a little awkwardly. Bob believed in showing up and getting the job done, and he had a work ethic like no one I've ever known. Even when his own health made it hard, Bob continued to work stoically and steadfastly. He never complained and he didn't falter. Yet he was always able to extend grace and compassion to others unquestioningly. Bob wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was the kind of leader who changed people's lives quietly and steadily, just by showing up every day and believing in the work and in the people doing it. I feel incredibly lucky to have Bob as a mentor, a boss, a friend, and as an example of how to lead with both strength and heart. His legacy lives on in this building and the new addition named in his honor, in the teachers and students he believed in, and in the culture he helped build in this small but mighty school. But Bob's legacy extends far beyond these walls. It lives on through the people whose lives Bob touched in both small and large ways. We are all better for having known him, and I'll carry that with me.
Another charter school.
Knew my Emily. Bob knew my flaws. But he thought you were flawless. I'm pretty sure. He admired you so much. Does anyone remember Chow Big Guy? Any boys here remember that walking up and down the hall? Chow Big Guy. I was thinking about that today. That was just, I love that. And you guys would come back to the high school and go, hey, Chow Big Guy. I'm going to visit the Wayback Machine. I'm going to go back to the year 2000 when Chris Osmers and I came over from Cuttyhunk. And I was there, I was teaching in Maine, I was spending the summer in Cuttyhunk, and Chris and I came over to get some groceries. And Chronix was just as expensive 25 years ago. And we stopped by the charter school, and Bob was in his office. He was right around the corner, sitting in his office. And when I was thinking about this, I wasn't nervous now. He was sitting in his office, we came in and Chris introduced me, and I said, yeah, I might be interested in a middle school job. And Bob said, it's teaching language arts. And Bob said, well, I don't have anything, but I wish I did. And that has stuck with me since August of 2000. That made such a difference to me, just to hear that, whether he meant it or not. It had a powerful effect on me. The following year, both my parents had passed away. I was teaching in Portland. I thought, I don't need any changes. I'm fine where I am, but I kept looking in the paper. Sure enough, there was a job opening at the regional, and I started filling out the application for that. And the following week, there was a job opening at the charter school. So I pursued that and submitted the application and ended up coming down to the island to visit. And I don't know, some of the people who were on the interview group might be in this room. I met parents and teachers and kids, and saw the school, and it's like, wow, this is different and good. And so went back to Portland. And a few weeks later, I got a call from Bob, and he wanted to come observe my classroom. So he got on the ferry, drove 3 hours to Portland, spent 10 minutes in my classroom, drove back, and got me the job. I guess that went okay. That was 10 minutes. Here I ended up here. DC and I were hired the same year, and we had an interesting time. It was wonderful and difficult and hard to get used to, and pushed me so hard to find out who I was as a teacher, and that was such a gift to me. That made all the difference. So I began many years of learning who I was as a teacher and a person. Bob kept allowing me to come back. I kept leaving and coming back. And he kept inviting me back in to give it another try, whether it was making myself sing at morning meeting. I kept thinking, I'm here because I'm supposed to sing at morning meeting. That's what this grand scheme is about. But I was here to do that. I hiked to the presidentials with Jonah and a bunch of kids. We did a cartoon version of Gilgamesh. I mastered the PEP process. I survived the Italy trip along with and Bob was always in the background of all that. And I think it was my perceived, what I perceived was his faith in me. As Emily was saying, I really felt like he believed in me. And if I screwed up, he was going to tell me, but otherwise I was doing fine. And that gave me the ability and power to become the teacher I needed to be, and that I should have been. And it was really important. His emphasis on the idea that a successful school and being a successful teacher is based on relationships was the thing that I took away as being the most important thing. Here we all are. Bob let me learn so much. I'm grateful that he hired me, but I'm even more grateful for the community he fostered and the relationships that developed out of it. Right now, we're all here because of our shared relationship with Bob. I hope we can all reflect on how much that would mean to him, and also how he would take no credit for it at all. Right, Jerry? Here's to many more decades of his influence, and the influence of Bob's relationship with the school and each of us. Thank you.
You're chatting over a former graduate and currently one of the school board members.
Thanks, Mom. Morning, everyone. Morning. Thank you so much, Shar, for the chance to speak today about Bob. My story with Bob starts not in 2011 when I enrolled at the charter school as a sixth grader, but instead starts when I was a toddler, when I was diagnosed with, at the time they called Asperger's. Today you would just label it autism. I struggled mightily to make friends in my hometown in New Jersey. I went through struggles with bullying, depression, and low self-esteem. My parents had heard about the charter school when we were just summer visitors to the island. It was a big change, going to a school where the teachers, and yes, the principal, were referred to by their first names, and where the school got together here on Main Street every morning. But when I first met Bob and sat with him in his office talking baseball, it was one of the first times that I ever felt at home. Bob's kind greeting, as Emily mentioned, we all know the "how we doing?" Would go on to become the first interaction I had here at the charter school every single day. The time I spent under Bob's tutelage here at the charter school was nothing short of transformational. Bob created and maintained a culture in which kids like me were not only permitted, but encouraged to explore our interests, grow from failure, and chart our own path. Bob himself taught me about perseverance, hard work, collaboration, and trust. When I look back so fondly at my time here at the charter school, I know that it all leads back to Bob. His handpicked teachers, many of whom are here today, taught me the power of activism and kindness and vulnerability and respect and courage. They taught me to dig deep when I needed to get grittier, and they taught me to stand up to injustice and inequity no matter how strong the prevailing winds are. Most importantly, Bob electrified and catalyzed a student body that was committed to justice and political involvement.
He built an environment in which each of us had a responsibility to make the world better, which meant both protesting internationally for action to combat climate change and making sure each of us treated our fellow students here with respect and dignity. None of what I have been able to achieve during and after my time at the charter school would have been possible without Bob Moore. Of the many lessons I will take from Bob, the one that will stick with me the most is the importance of both having a vision and being able to translate it into reality, as Bob Moore did with this wonderful, wonderful school. I can only hope that each and every one of us finds something that lights the fire under us, like building this school from the ground up so clearly did for Bob. Thank you again, Shari, for the chance to be part of this celebration of Bob's life, and thank you all for coming out to the charter school on this special day. Thank you.
I was asked to do this. I was very nervous, and I'm honored. I work at the hospital, and I transported Bob to his appointments, and we always had our conversations, and he always would I would always see him with a smile, and I was just, whenever they would call me transportation on the radio, and I would with a lot of my appointments. So some of them I knew Bob's time when he was coming, and I was like, whenever they would call transportation, like, that's Bob. I really was very, very happy to, and I would try to make that transport slow. I would get in trouble. What like it was Bob fought. Bob was my hero. He was tough, and he really fought. And it was just there's one thing that Bob, there's a special thing that Bob always said to me. Epilepsy, and he would always say to me, I'm a learning disability, and he would say whenever I was at school, and so then he would say, Carlos, even though you have a learning disability, that will never ever stop you from doing or doing or stopping you from fighting anything. If you put your mind to it, and I'm getting into the hospital that I knew that Bob was there. You know, I think that was Bob helping me. You know, he was there with me, and what helped, like always, he was helping me, and I was very proud to be a student here. Was always they're saying, "Hey, you know, brothers," and he was always there with a smile. And it was an honor to be a student at the charter school. Well, and I did leave the charter school for a year to try this. I grew up as well in Ireland, and I thought that I would try school in Ireland because I've got a lot of family there, and it was very hard, and a lot of bullying as well. I couldn't get back for the year. But whenever I came back, Bob didn't have to like take me back. Like my brother BJ, he was here, but I think that I talked to Bob, my parents did, but all the time, but he was like, no, it was he came whenever I came back, I knew that I was coming back, and whenever I did come back, he greeted me with open arms, but not just open arms, with an open heart.
You know, most folks, when they graduate from college, if they played baseball in college, kind of the end, right? Kind of the end of the thing. But not on the side. There's a group of guys who formed a team called, appropriately, the Dogfish. We have continued this, and Bob was part of that, and his teammate Anna Bresnick is going to speak next.
Morning. Bobby Moore. I sure do miss him. And as we know, looking around this room, he's still here and he's still there, as we've heard from everybody else. And when I'm driving around the road and having a conversation in my head that's ongoing, and I finally take a breath and stop, I don't know if it's from inside my head or outside my head, but I hear Bobby saying, "Oh boy." And Bobby was a runner. If he was my principal, I would have eaten 1,000,000 donuts. And we're all here for the same reason, to pay our respects to Bobby. And there's no doubt that right now he is looking at all of us and wondering why so many people are here for him. And in this humble manner is asking, what did I do that no one else could do? Yet he would be deeply touched to know that everybody is here. And my name is Adam Bresnick. I'm a friend, teammate, and assistant coach of Bob's. And I want to share a few thoughts about Bob in those roles and about how much baseball meant to him. Regardless of the subject or thoughts of a particular day, the emails with Bob and I would always be sprinkled with haikus about baseball. As we all know, Bob did not waste words, yet he could say a lot with the words or the look that he used. So it makes sense he loved haikus. So I'd like to share a couple of them with you. The shriek of osprey, a harbinger, play ball, as spring comes anew. Sun rises over fields, the player's head still sleeping, dream of the big play. First hit is the hardest, focus, concentration, sweat, hard work will pay off. Oh, there's more. Back at it again, swing at strikes, pick up grounders. Any dogfish knows they've heard that a million times. Kids always working. Temperature cools, the umpires arrive on time, cleats tied tight, play ball. Turning back the clock, pull up socks, tuck in jersey, men become boys again. I met Dobby on the baseball field, naturally. I was a coach of a different team, and I got to know Bob when I was in the dugout. He was coaching first base. He'd have his glasses low on his nose, the scorebook in his hands, and he would coach first while simultaneously keeping score. Yet he would never miss anything that happened on that field. We developed a nice back and forth while watching the game. We would share some quick comments or knowing glances about what we saw on the field in front of us, and always a few laughs. It was not long before we decided to coach together. I was always drawn to Bob's calm demeanor and unflappable focus. I think we've heard a lot of these words throughout these speeches today. I think he was drawn to what I like to call my expressive calmness. Bob did not get rattled. That approach instilled a confidence in those around him. No matter what chaos developed in front of him on the Little League field, and as any of you have witnessed a Little League game, well, no, chaos is just looking for a reason. He could always look over at Bob and got the feeling he had seen it all before. Except, of course, for the many times when after the literal dust would settle, he would look over, glasses low, the youth with a scorebook in his hand and a sharp pencil in the other. Probably needed somewhere to put his hands when he or in his pocket. And he would say, 50 years in baseball, never seen that before. I'd look over, shrug my shoulders and say, no, that sure was something, Bob. And after a long pause, as he reconciled exactly what he had just witnessed, he'd turn back to me and say, remind me to talk about that in practice. And he would talk about it in practice. That was where the essence of Bob shined through. That was where the magic happened. And to keep the attention of a full cadre of 9 to 12-year-old boys and girls is magic. Bob would call the kids around and talk to them about what happened and what could be learned from the experience so they would be ready the next time. Everyone got a second chance with Bob. The first time, strike one, they got a pass. Bob always met kids and people where they were until they had talked about something and developed expectations together about how to behave or handle a situation. It wasn't their issue. He would say, hey, we never went over that in practice. Till we talk about it here, together, practice it, then I don't expect you to know it. But now that we have, I expect you to do it right next time. If the players did do the same thing again, the same situation, strike two. Then Bob, with a gentle firmness and respect, would talk with the player individually. He would never call him out in front of the group. Bob would find the right moment to talk with that individual and work with them to figure out what the issue was and how he and they both could do better going forward. Personally, I never saw a strike three. Some of you in the charter school may have, because you did donuts and you were called to the principal's office. But Bobby would make it clear right away about what his expectations were for the team. The goal was to have fun playing baseball, to work hard, and to improve. Give your best effort. He made sure the kids knew that when they stepped onto the field, that was a sanctuary. The rest of their life would be waiting for them outside the fence. But inside the fence, where baseball had no clock, that was about them and their team. Over time, Bobby and I boiled it down to his 10 rules of baseball. Have fun, be relaxed, and like everything, these can be applied to life. See the ball, hit the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball, know where the play is, or as Bobby would say, focus. Know what you're gonna do when the ball comes to you. Everybody makes mistakes. If you do make a mistake, forget about it. Move on to the next play, or as Bobby would say, refocus. Respect the game, the umpires, your opponents, your teammates, your coaches, and your fans. Finally, have fun. It's a game. I'll finish with a note Bob wrote to me as we wrapped up a particularly fun season, and I asked him why that team was so special. His response was classic Bob and could easily be extrapolated out from the team to any group as Bob was a part of, be it family, friends, the charter school, the jail, the community, the island, and so forth. In true Bob fashion, he basically says everything I've just said, up with just a couple of words. He said, quote, they understood early that this is a team game and they bought into it. They sincerely liked each other. I think we can take away from the season that this group understood that this experience is much more than just baseball. We use baseball to teach other more important lessons. Team, love of the game, hard work, respect your teammates and your opponent, etc. And of course, he included a haiku. Kids move on, so glad. The team built, but now no more. Time to start again. For once, I responded with some brevity. I simply wrote back, Bob, you are a wise man. Thank you. We love you, Bobby, and we all miss you.
James, the former chair of the school board here at Richard.
Well, I wrote a speech, but I'm gonna go off the cuff. How we doing? Good. Bob greeted me that way, and many of us that way, every single time. So, and I would say, Bob, how you doing? And I do my Boston accent, or whatever accent Bob had, and he didn't play. He didn't realize I was trying to imitate him. And how you doing, Bob? But he always said we. I said, how are we doing? And that stuck with me, so I did it wherever I went. But I'd respond to Bob by saying, I'm doing fine, Bob. How are you? And he would say, I'm great. Every single time. And then he'd tell me a story about why he was great. One day it was, oh, got this new teacher. She's great. Or I remember when you guys came to the school, they said, this kid's coming here. You're not going to believe this kid's going to do stuff. I swear to God. And he was so excited. New teachers, new staff, new building, new facility, whatever we were doing. It's great. And that was my experience with Bob for about 3 years. I was just a parent. And I kind of have 3 lives with Bob. I've got my parent life with Bob, my board experience with Bob, and baseball. I got Bob to coach baseball. And I'll tell you a little story. I got 3 stories. One is my parents' story. By the way, this is a great gathering. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm seeing faces that have had so much influence on my life and my kids. All the teachers who don't cry, who made this place what it is. But 3 stories. My parents' story. We moved to Vineyard Haven in 2020, and we were going to go to Vineyard Haven School until Patrice Grace, Bonnie Alexander convinced my wife to go to this crazy hippie school in West District. And they told Alice all about how, it's learning, it's got pillars. They were pitching her. Then they looked over at me and they said, "Oh, there's a guy with a tie. His name's Bob. And he's into baseball. You'll love it." That's how shallow I am. I heard baseball. I'm like, let's go. So we went to the barbecue. Bob was flipping burgers and hot dogs, and he was wearing a tie. And so I knew who he was. Now, when I first heard the words Bob Moore, I thought it was Bob Moore, the state trooper, who was 6'6" and one of the most intimidating people you've ever met. And so I was like, oh, this place has got to be in ship-shop shape. You know, Bob Moore, because I played basketball against Bob Moore. He's huge. You know, it's very intimidating. But it wasn't that Bob Moore. It was a total different Bob Moore. And for the first year, we had that greeting. And for a while, I thought maybe he's doing that because he doesn't know my name. Hi, how we doing? And then I realized he did know me. And we became friends. And I would hear stories from my kids. My son Eli came home from school one day and he said, I said, how's school? He said, well, that Bob, he's not fair. Bob's not fair. Well, one of his classmates, I won't mention his name, he's here. He gets in trouble every day and he comes back with donuts. And that's not fair. I never get in trouble and I never get any donuts. It's not fair. You shouldn't do that. I said, Bob has donuts in his office? Because food here was very important, and really good food was really important. It was some of the best food you'd ever find in a school. So I was a little concerned about the donuts. And then Max said, oh, Bob's great. Bob loves baseball. And I didn't know my son Max loved baseball until he said that. But he would go to school every day with his mitt and he'd play catch. And he'd play catch with Bob. And I said, Bob brings a mitt to school? And Max said, oh no, he just catches it with his bare hand and throws it back. Which made sense because when you shoot Bob's hand, it hurt. You had to go in with Bob and you had to like go in hard because you get that cold night because otherwise you'd crush your hand. So that was my parents' story. I ended up meeting Bob every day on that stoop, and he would say the same thing every day. But the story, the great story that he had would always change. And those were always, I was always looking forward to what was great that day. And then one day my wife came back and she said, I signed you up for the school board. And I said, why'd you do that? Well, because you're always saying, why don't they do this and why don't they do that? So I signed you up. So that's not right. But that's, if you know my wife, that's what she does. If you complain about something, well, you should go do something about it. So I signed up, and that meant that I got to meet with Bob twice a month for 5 years. And wow, not gonna cry. But that was awesome. We would meet in his office with the donuts. Occasionally a hand would come in, crack at the door and grab a donut. Bob would say, sack. Hand. Sometimes we met out on the playground, benches. Sometimes we met at the Black Dog. It's the only time I went to the Black Dog was with Bob. Like that. Close to home, right? And those meetings, Bob, were great. They really were. They started off talking about the school. We always talked about facilities, finances, faculty, really quick. We got through that really fast. And then Bob started talking about, the help he needed. And the help that he asked me for was focusing on change. He wanted to be better at what he was doing, but when he looked at the list of his evaluations over the years, there was like a page of stuff. And so I said, well, how are we gonna make change? And he said, I think we should just focus on like 2 or 3 things a year. And once I figure out those and we institutionalize and make a process for them, we can move on to other things. And I thought that was just genius, right? Just change habits slowly and with purpose. Well, that was board Bob. We did that for 5 years. And after that, I kind of missed Bob. And I knew he played baseball. And so I begged him to come and coach baseball with me. I'm too busy, I got meetings, you know, I work all day, I come here at 5 o'clock in the morning and I got meetings at night, it's still at school, can't do it. I said, all right, we practice Saturday, Sunday, 12 o'clock, I got good slots. Every Saturday, Sunday, here in our park, if you want to be there, good. Well, one day, I mean, I poked the bear for years. Come on, Marty, you gotta do this, gotta, my son, I got my sons to do it. No luck. One day, Bob shows up outside the fence at Vieira Park in his car. His car. And I'm like, Bob, you wanna come? He's like, no, I'm good. And he's watching. Drives away. Does it again, comes back on. Bob, come on, just come out. Okay, so he goes to his car, gets his red hooded sweatshirt, his tennis shoes, sweatpants, which I never thought I'd see. And he says, what should I do? He said, Bob, hit ground balls to that side of the field. I'm gonna hit ground balls to this side. That's all we do. That's all we do. We're gonna do that for a half hour, and then we're gonna run the bases, then we're gonna hit the ball, then we're gonna chat. That was my practice. Bob got out there, found the biggest bat he could find, which looked like a toothpick in his hand. And he hit ground balls for about 20 minutes. And that was it. That was it. That's all he needed. He came back every single practice, every single game, did travel baseball in the summer with us. And he was my assistant coach, which is ridiculous, right? He knows more about baseball than all of us. But he never told me what to do. But I guess he liked what I did, because we had the same philosophy. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it light. One of the things that I love most about Bob is he never yelled at a kid. And boy, those kids could do stuff you wanted to yell at. He never yelled at kids. The only time he raised his voice on the baseball field was to congratulate somebody. And what would he say? That was great. That was great. You do that as a kid? Unbelievable. That was great. And then he, raised the kid. But when a kid did something bad, and he never got mad at a kid for making a mistake. It was, did he treat an umpire poorly? Did he treat another teammate poorly? That he would put his arm around and he would whisper, you know what? Bob's whisper was like 8 decibels. You know what? Sure, I do that. We'll talk about that later. You have to respect for teammates. You have to respect for the umpires. It's really important. Always a whisper. I love that about Bob. It's one of the things, as a coach, you dream about it. So I was a parent, Bob parent. I was bored with Bob, I was baseball with Bob. But I got to be friends with Bob. And that was unconditional. Like he could do no wrong and I could do no wrong. It was just whatever Bob wanted, whatever Bob said, I respected. I thought about. A lot of times I didn't agree with him, but I always respected him and he always listened. He listened to kids, he listened to adults, he listened to other people in the community, and the whole how we doing for me was what Bob was about. Bob was about we. What can we do as a community? What can we do as a school? What can we do as an island country? It's all about we. And yes, I went to Italy with Bob. And I've never seen a more excited human being in my life than he walked through the Uffizi and looked at the paintings and he was with the kids. It was one of the great experiences that I had with Bob was being in Italy. You were there too. Family, thank you for inviting me here and thank you for letting me be a part of this. Thank you all for coming. This is an honor to be here and an honoring this great man. I miss him, and I just want to say one other thing. There's a picture of him over here with an afro. I swear to God, right here. Yes. You see it? You got afterwards. Come and look at this picture. Bob has an afro in this picture. I want you to know that I used to have one too.
Bob was also former chair of the school board here, actually, I don't remember the years, I'm sure you'll cover it, but just a little while ago.
I can't remember the years either. Oh.
Thanks all for coming. As I'm sitting back there listening to people, realized how much I didn't know. I met Bob through the school. I didn't know anything about the baseball or I thought he played hockey. I mean, I know he played hockey also, but nobody's talked about hockey today. I played hockey in high school, and when I found out he played hockey, Bob Moore made a little more sense to me because he had a big voice, he had a big brain, big heart. He really did. And handling 100 kids a year, 100 so kids a year and year, I remember I used to, as a board member, I used to meet weekly in his office with all the chaos outside the door, behind, and I could hear all this. And we just sit in there and talk. He'd given me his weekly State of the Union address discussion, state of the school. And basically it was just, how are we doing? I had this job. I mean, I started here in the charter school. My boys were here. They went from K through 12. Actually, my youngest of the two started kindergarten the first year they had kindergarten. So his graduating class was the first year that kids went to the school for 13 years. It was quite an accomplishment. And he was, I learned how different, in a positive way, this school was from other schools. My oldest daughter, she was in middle school, I think, when we began to think about the charter school. And she said, Dad, I kind of like to read the chapter, do the homework, take the test. That's the kind of school she liked. So I left it there. But Aiden and Teo loved this educational model. They loved being encouraged instead of being told what to do. The pillars are a lot of nice words, but lifelong learners. I think my boys learned to never stop learning. They still do. They're in their 30s and they still do it. And they learned it here. They learned it from him. The teachers too, not to little, that's really boots on the ground. It's the teachers, but Bob was the overseer, and also he didn't run this organization like from the top down. He embodied the philosophy of the school. He got into the school, from the students to the staff to the teachers, all of them. He didn't just, issue memos. He was involved. He loved this. He loved the kids, but he loved the island. I think one of the audios in the video when I first came in was Bob saying, there's two things I love about this. I love this island and I love this school. But I knew he wasn't talking about the building. He loved the building too, but he loved it. He really did. And after that, the kids graduated, and I didn't want to just disappear from the school. I can't quite remember, this was a while ago, and my memory's pretty spotty. I didn't want to just disappear. And then I don't know how it happened, but I ended up on the board of trustees for a little while, and then they needed to pick a president. So I had this title of president of the board of trustees. It sounded very, up there. All I did was show up at meetings and call the meeting to order. I was kind of like a traffic cop. That's basically all I did. And the meetings weren't that contentious, so I didn't have much refereeing to do either. Just showed up. The best part of the job was those weekly meetings with Bob. In the morning, once a week, we'd sit in there. How is it going? It's going great, big voice. It's great. And I just, it was, and then that ended. And then, over the years, my connection with the school has faded, but it is really, it's like old home week to see all these familiar faces in here. Beautiful. I was thinking, in my experience, how much we miss someone when they leave is a function of how close they were. And I didn't know Bob that well. I knew him through the school. I loved them that much. But my heart goes out to people. When I first walked in and I started looking at these pictures, these photographs, so I'm glad somebody put them up. What's with Bob and Sherry? And Sherry has this grin on her face. I mean, that's the kind of guy he was. He had a gigantic heart. He was a force. And, you know, when they go, they leave a void, you know. So, Bob, I love you and I'll always miss you. Thank you.
Bob left the charter school in 2018. He moved on to the Dukes County Jail, not as a. He moved on as the educator for the Dukes County Jail, and his incredible boss, Bob Ogden, is here, our Dukes County Sheriff, to say a few words. Bob loved it there. He did not stop talking.
All right, stop talking. I've got the whole speech on it. All right. God.
This is somebody that I've met.
First, I'd like to say, I wanted to kind of just ad lib it. And after I thought for a while, I had about 10 pages of ad lib about Bob. I just couldn't stop thinking about things that reminded me of him. He's always around. He's always here. And that voice, you know, it's just killed you. The way I wanted to begin it is I'm sure you're all wondering why the Dukes County Sheriff is standing here today. Then she segued in and told him why. But I'm kind of here to speak about Bob's 6-year sentence at the Dukes County Youth Correctional. Really an unexpected setting, perhaps, but one that illuminates the profound contribution he made. Sorry. Within those walls. Truly, faith led Bob on his path to us. His journey began when he sought a new purpose, a job, a way to make a meaningful impact in his retirement. Not as an educator, but of all things, an E911 telecommunicator. I remember going into my HR office and I'm saying, hey, do we have anybody for telecommunication? And they're like, oh, we got 4 or 5 candidates. There's one guy, he just washed right out. Yeah, he just didn't have it. He just didn't have what it took. I'm like, oh, what's his name? Bob Moore. He talked too much. He wouldn't follow the script. I was like, wait, are you talking about Bob Moore, baseball Bob Moore, charter school Bob Moore? She's like, yeah, I don't think he's gonna make it. I grabbed it off of her desk and I ran into my office and called Bob and I said, Bob, what are you doing? Why? And he said, I just wanted to be useful. He said, I need some purpose in my life. It was in prison where he found his second calling. This is hard for me. Bob was a true student of human condition, with what can only be described as genius for understanding and expressing the complex issues of emotions. He had a remarkable ability to break them down into relatable concepts that his students could easily grasp. He was never one to sugarcoat reality. Bob made it clear there's no free rides in life. Commitment and hard work essential to realizing one's potential. He often reminded us, you get out of life what you put into it. Life is undeniably a struggle. He believed but we have choice. We can either wallow in self-pity or embrace the struggle with purpose and conviction. He had zero tolerance for complainers and whiners, yet he possessed an uncanny ability to disarm his students. With that impish grin, that twinkle in his eye, and that grandfatherly demeanor, Bob would invite them into his domain. Just as they began to soften and try to pull on his heartstrings as victims of their own crimes, he would lean forward and say, "Let me stop you right there." And ask, "Hey, what's your plan? What are you willing to do to get it?" Then he would follow, "I will help you if you want it bad enough." And he did, rebuilding the prison library with great works of literature, then convincing individuals who barely made it through the 8th grade to fall in love with them. He helped our inmate population get their GEDs, inspiring a thirst for knowledge, leading them to initiate an inmate schedule educational program for higher education through Northeastern, allowing our incarcerated population for the first time to acquire college credits towards a degree. Bob often emphasized his desire to help others find their way out of corrections and incarceration. He believed in redemption and held the conviction that anyone was capable of change, if willing to acknowledge his or her fault and put in the effort to improve. His gift for breaking down complex issues and emotions into actionable insight left lasting legacy. Bob left us little breadcrumbs, words of wisdom that encapsulated what was important to Bob. More importantly, he taught us how to apply these lessons in our own lives. Never more apparent was his love of the haiku. His 3-line poems. He would leave them on scraps of paper and encourage others to try as expressions of their own passion, hopes, and regrets. As I was writing this, I was working in the jail. And I was trying to learn how to figure out how to write it into words. And I went into my superintendent's bathroom, and pasted on the wall was a scrap of paper. And one of his goddamn haikus. I was like, I'm like, "Gee, where did this come from?" He's like, "Oh, Bob came in one day and he said, I got this great idea about haikus for the inmates, man. It's gonna be incredible. It's excellent. It's gonna be great. So let's try it." And it was St. Patrick's Day. So my superintendent went in and he wrote something about St. Patrick's Day. "All right, Bob, whatever, right?" And Bob wrote something that really stuck with me because it talked about how simple it is to speak to your passion. And we all know what Bob's passion was, other than his wife and his brother. It was the haiku. And baseball. We heard a few of them, but on the wall it said, "Sunlight stays later, the crackle of bat echoes through the evening hours." Bob Moore, 3/17/2021. In closing, I'd just like to say, as we remember Bob today, let's carry forward his teachings, both in words and action, and honor his incredible spirit by striving to be useful and help others in meaningful ways. Thank you.
twin brother Billy. Mary Beth, of course. And his wife Mary Beth. Point.
Boy, what a community. Unbelievable, unbelievable. What a precious, precious group of people. So impressed, just so impressed. And, we just want to thank you guys. What Bobby meant to you. Yeah, Mary Beth and I put this together last couple of days, so I'll do the reading for the next time. Thank you all for the kind words and stories about Bob. Bob loved Martha's Vineyard Public Charter School. This was his life, in many ways his family. When we were here last for the groundbreaking ceremony, Bob spoke of the trust he had in the ability of his teachers. Bob always wanted his teachers and students to be set up to be successful. When we would visit during the summer, Bob was proud of the new projects at the school, whether it be a new addition to classrooms or improving the outside playground area. Remember the butterfly garden? Was it butterfly garden? I think we were all proud of how the charter school evolved. The first class learning center it became during Bob's 20+ years at the school. One of the last visits I had with Bob, that's General Hospital. Sorry. Bob spoke to me about his main cancer doctor sitting down and explaining what a great patient he was. And that most cancer patients have one cancer, maybe two at the most. But we don't see many patients like you, Bob, with 5 types of different cancers. In closing, I just want to thank the charter school family for being so supportive of Bob and Sherry. As myself, my wife Mary Beth, and our son Will were traveling in Europe when we received a call that Bob was admitted to the Martha's Vineyard Hospital. Sorry. A couple days later, we received another call from Sherry to tell me that Bob had passed. She also said she had something special to talk to me about. I said, Sherry, what is that? She said, Bob's last words were, please tell Billy I love him. Oh, thank you so much.
You take a minute to hand them somewhere. Everybody, a little changes. This is gonna be performed by Chelsea, Caroline, and Sharon.
That will work.
Good morning.
Yeah, we think fine. Starts on this side.
Bob always said this was his favorite song. But he had that way of making you feel like everything you did in that moment was the most special thing. And as the music teacher at the charter school, I teach all my students. And I will continue to teach as long as I'm a music teacher. And I always sing a Bob. And the first thing we're going to do is sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," the original words from and then I wrote a special version of it, "Take Me Out to the Charter School" to honor Bob. So please. Nice. How's college like? Let's go. Where are you again? No, that's awesome. 2-year program. Last week.
We're gonna have a video left, and it has some great words of wisdom from Bob and some great photos of his life. So, can we shut down the lights, maybe?
The lights are up there.
The lights
Lights
are
are that
there.
way.
Somebody shut the lights on there. Just a short video, and then everyone's in trouble at the end. And the teachers know what I'm talking about, right?
Donuts.
Okay.
1 second. We're going to do the other one, the one with audio.
At the end of the video, everyone, just make your way to the science wing because I think we all got 3 stripes and there's some donuts waiting there. All right.
Time struggle. We want to see if we can create a supportive. Address the learning styles of that particular student early on. So, from an educational perspective, that's what we're going to try to do that. I just, from a professional perspective, from my role as director, I want the parents to continue to be involved. I want our community to continue to be strong. We have enjoyed a lot of success. There's no question about it. But we still have, we need to keep challenging ourselves. We need to keep working at our profession to the best of our ability. Because we can be better, we can do better. So we need to keep challenging ourselves in areas that feel need to be addressed. So I want us to continue improving our work. I want us to bring some initiatives into the school that our kids will benefit from. Right now, just moving in a green direction. I have had an extraordinary experience in my life. I'm just a happy person when I go to school every day. I enjoyed bike riding, I enjoy rollerblading. For me, the last 10 years have been, it's been a perfect match for me, what I need to do professionally as well as personally. So I hope good times continue at Charter School. I just love fireworks. So they can see the breath and the real life of what's going on. If they can see the between the adult and the the students participating in the classroom. They can see that there's an option. It's not for everyone, may not be for everyone, but for those families that have been served by the Charter School, I think they've left, they've been benefited by it. And I'm happy that I'm just part of that process.
Right, and benefited not just the student, but the entire family.
Absolutely.
And that's made an impact in our community. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being here today and talking about yourself and the charter school and giving people who've never been some insights into what it's doing.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey for me and my family. Many of you don't know this, but my brother Billy was here, and I went to second grade and third grade in Tishbury in 62 and 63. My brother Tommy graduated from Region High School in 63. I came back in 1980 with my wife Sherry to visit for an overnight in Chappaquiddick. And then I came back in 1998 because I was hired to run the school. There are two things that I brought to this community. One is my love of the island, and two is my love of the school. And those are the two things that have persevered from the day I walked back here in 98 to today. My love of this island and my love of this school. And those two things will never change. Thank you very much.
Don't get me wrong yet. It took a community of people to get us where we are today. It took a wonderful group of students, a talented, creative group of teachers, the supportive administration, board of trustees, and office of education personnel to make it work. To a person, I received the support for 20 years that I asked for and that I needed for us to get to where we are today. I mean, something very simple. But Jordan came to me 25 years ago and said, I want to take the kids to Italy. I go, Italy? They get cheeseburgers. They get changed my mind. And taking those kids to Italy every year has changed the lives of many of our kids. That reminds me. I think he or she would spoke to it. Our teachers change the lives of every kid every day they came to school. Believe me when these people tell you we have a talented group of teachers in this building. And believe me when Pete says our kids' lives are changed every day. But it's true. And last, I want to mention that Sheila was a student here for 10 or 12 years, but 8 or 10 years out here. And she mentioned a little bit about the pillars of the school. There's one pillar of the school that I brought to school every day. And that was trust. I trusted every person that walked into this building every day to do the best they could do every day. And that's what happened. Our students and our teachers came to work every day and did the best they could do. Through the trust that they had in them. When you trust people, they will perform at levels that you could not imagine. So believe me, continue trusting in the people that come in the building every day. And last but not least, my last meeting with Pete before I walked out, he walked in. He said to me, Bob, I'm really nervous. What are you nervous about? So you were here for 20 years, who am I? I looked at Pete and I looked him in the eye and I said, you just be yourself. And you'll be fine. And Pete has taken us on a continued journey of successful charter school on Martha's Vineyard. And on behalf of all of us, Pete, we want to thank you for the work you've been doing.
Are more probably better that way. If you're the door, just go to your left and you'll see the door open. To the side, wait. Yes.
I knew you'd be right. I knew you were right. I didn't see you, but I
That's